I did a little bit of Chicago history in a video, specifically pertaining to development of land east of Lakeshore Drive along the lakefront. And this person here comes in and says, isn't that the same lake that when the city gets too much sewage, they just pump it into the lake? No. No, that's not where it goes. That's where it used to go. It used to be that the city of Chicago's sewage would all flow into the river and then would flow out to the lake. And then they started doing different types of things like sewage plants over the years, but they also reversed the flow of the river. Now we clean up our sewage like any other major city does. There's still some contaminants, obviously, in the Chicago River. It's not a river you want to jump into, but the Chicago River does not flow to Lake Michigan anymore. The city of Chicago actually reversed the flow of the Chicago River to keep sewage and contaminants in the Chicago River out of Lake Michigan, because Lake Michigan is the prime source of drinking water. Before I show you a video about this, a quick map. You can see Chicago in the upper right-hand corner of this map, and where Chicago meets the southern end of Lake Michigan, and then the Chicago River, that body of water in Chicago. And you can see how it comes out of the city of Chicago and flows down to Joliet and eventually LaSalle and Peoria. And our river, the city of Chicago's river, goes the opposite direction of what it should. In the city of Chicago, the water would normally flow towards the lake. But as I said, because of the sanitary conditions and the fact that Chicago and the suburbs and Northwest Indiana and many other places draw their drinking water from Lake Michigan, they reversed the flow.
The Chicago River flows backward. That's right, backward. In 1900, engineers reversed the flow of this river because their drinking water comes from Lake Michigan, and they wanted any wastewater or pollution in the Chicago River to stay out of that lake. Now, the Chicago River ends up in the Mississippi. Today, the Chicago River is a centerpiece for one of the most iconic urban landscapes in the world, cutting through the heart of this city and its amazing architecture. It's a marvel of engineering that shaped Chicago's future. The Chicago River Walk is a $100 million investment that transformed this area and reconnected the city to the riverfront. The Chicago River Walk is now lined with restaurants and shops and bars and tours that fuel $1 billion into the local economy. One of the fun events comes every year on St. Patrick's Day, when they dye the water of the Chicago River green to celebrate that holiday. Don't worry, it biodegrades and doesn't pollute the environment. The Chicago River is a perfect example of how these waterways are so much more. They are the heartbeat of our cities, as we see here in Chicago.
It really is quite an amazing feat that they managed to 100 years ago figure out how to get the water to reverse flow, and then over the subsequent 100 years work diligently to clean up that water to make sure that there can be a river walk. And I know that people are going to go, that's bullshit, that fucking river stinks. But do you think that the city of Chicago could actually have successful bars, restaurants, and clubs along the river if the river stunk to that level? Of course not. So if you're not from Chicago and you're hearing people give you Chicago propaganda, just take that into consideration when they're talking about the river. If the river was that bad, nobody would sit outdoors in the summertime at a restaurant enjoying a lunch along the river. Nobody would get in a boat and go on an architectural tour on that river, which happens every day through numerous companies. No, the sewage does not go into Lake Michigan where people swim and enjoy their lives. It goes the opposite direction. First of all, sewage is now treated, but the river itself goes the opposite direction and still does. I think the only time that they've actually reversed it back was one of the few times, I should say. I don't want to misspeak. Recently, the past handful of years, there was flooding in the city of Chicago, and because of the flooding, they needed to reverse the flow to get the water to go back out to Lake Michigan quickly to alleviate some flooding issues. But other than that, it flows backwards. Everything from Chicago from a water standpoint, goes downriver, comes within a mile of my house. I'm within about a mile of the river, and then flows all the way down to the Mississippi.